Thanks for joining us. Oh, let me start again. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about funding your small business. My name is Lisa Jones. I am the Chief Economic Inclusion Officer for West Central and New Growth. And we are home of the New Growth Women's Business Center. And we also operate a program called the Start Here Prime Project, which are kind of our sponsors of this event today. So let's just jump right in. Today we're going to be talking about taking your dreams to reality. A lot of people are thinking about small businesses because of the economy. A lot of this younger generation today, they have a focus on what they want out of life and often are focused on small businesses and ideas that they may have. So, or maybe you're near retirement age and you want to do something part-time on the side to supplement your retire income. There's never a better day to start a small business than today. So our key objectives today will be understanding what resources are required to get you going on starting your business or growing your business, understanding the different opportunities to fund your startup, and then the challenges associated with all of those funding opportunities. We're going to look at developing an action plan to access funding for your small business. So the first thing you want to look at is, am I ready to be a small business owner? We joke in the business development industry that everyone who's ever drank a drink in a bar or ate a meal in a restaurant feels that they were qualified to own a bar or restaurant. However, that's not always the case. Being a business owner requires long hours, a lot of commitment. You need your spouse and your children to want to own a business as well, because this will be a family affair, regardless of how you try to separate those things. It will limit your personal spending for a few years because any dollars you have are probably going to be going into the business. A lot of times we equate it to having another child. It's something that may cause you some sleepless nights, but in the end, hopefully brings you a lot of joy. So what is the life cycle of a business? First, you dream it, then you launch it, grow it, and then step 4, reinvent it. Very few businesses can sustain a full-term business life cycle without adding in a product line, changing up their services, and as we all saw in the last year, adapting to difficult situations with the economy as they arise. And lastly is exit, and we won't talk today about succession planning, but if you do have an existing business and you're interested in selling your business or moving out of your business, we would love to talk to you at the Women's Business Center about that. So almost every business needs some type of funding. These are some reasons why. You have to purchase inventory before you can sell it to someone else. There's kind of a ramping up stage, and I think a lot of businesses, even us as a non-for-profit organization, have faced this. Training your employees, getting them hired and paid, and marketing your business. And sometimes that marketing is needing to take place before your doors even open. A common misconception of owning a small business is that everyone in the world is wanting your product, and the minute you open the doors, there will be this line of people around the corner wanting to come in and purchase from you. And there are very few cases where that is actually a reality. Another challenge with the funding is maybe it's the cost of building a facility and buying the real estate and the equipment you need. Again, You have expenses before you have income. So that helps you to be able to access that capital to get your business on the ground. And then the last thing is lengthy product development cycles. And another thing I would put in with this as well is if you're in a service related industry, a lot of times your accounts receivable may have a 90 to a 120 day net. So you do the work and your workers want paid by the end of the week, but you don't actually get paid by that contractor or that job maybe for 90 to 120 days. So how are you going to buy equipment and pay your workers until you get paid out on a job? So there's really two types of funding for businesses. There's debt funding and equity funding. Debt funding is typically a bank loan or some type of loan that allows you to maintain ownership and control of your business. This is debt that this is a type of funding that needs repaid. Usually they want interest for that. And most of the time, this is the cheapest way to grow your business. If you're looking at a larger business endeavor, you might look at it involving investors. Do you realize that when people invest money in your business, they are expecting typically some type of control in the business? So you're trading ownership for the investment. And while the investment may not be paid back, you still are giving over portions of your company in the form of shares. In some type of business, the equity financing, a great example, people always think of Shark Tank. So there are some benefits that go along with the investment. You usually get the expertise, the knowledge, and the connections. So that's a different type of capital, but that comes to your business with an equity injection. So who might be an equity financer? That could come from your savings. It could come from the 3 F's, that's family, friends, and fools. Maybe you work with a partner. And then venture capital and angel investors. An important thing to remember, typically venture capitalists and angel investors are not interested in a business that is not going to gross less than around $5 million in the first couple years. So they're looking for high yield and short term to get a better return on their investment. If you are opening a shoe store in Nevada, Missouri, an angel investor is probably not going to be interested in working with you. They're typically tech type companies, perhaps manufacturing type companies, those types of things. Debt financing is more common. This is going to be a bank loan. It could be an SBA or a USDA backed loan. Debt financing also includes, like, if you're leasing equipment, it could be credit cards, credit from a vendor, and then also looking at, and sometimes this is a really overlooked area, personal or home equity loans. And then if your company gets large enough, trading of public stock. So where do most startups get their financing? Well, it's a common misconception that banks finance the biggest chunk. And as you can see from this chart, banks finance only 1% of small businesses. The bulk comes from, there's almost 40% coming from friends and family, people that believe in you, believe in your business. And then personal savings and credit. And I would say of this 57%, the majority is credit-based. Here's kind of the downside of this type of financing. When you start a small business with a credit card, it seems like a great idea because, you know, we're all going to make tons of money in the first couple of weeks of our small business, right? Yeah, and so we place items on a business credit card, and that interest rate could vary from 12 to 47%, 47.5% interest. So that's all great until you look at the cost of that money, and your business doesn't grow maybe as quick as you thought. And so now you're carrying this debt at a very high interest rate, which is why a lot of small businesses die within the first 18 months. So things to ask yourself: how much money do I need, really? And I would get that number just as slim as you can. You're opening a day spa. Do you need a brand new chair, or can you find a used chair that would suffice until your business grows a little more? Do you need to buy a building? Can you lease a building until you have you build up your customer line? Again, what type of business is it? And we've talked a little bit about this. What type of businesses work best with the venture capital funding, and what type can just open with capital from friends and family? And then how much control do I need? Most businesses in our market, in the 15 counties that we serve through New Growth, are probably 100% controlled by their owner or owner and spouse. So things to know: before you go to borrow money, you need to have some money, or at least you need to have some skin in the game before you seek any type of external funding. Especially with banks and investors, if you come to the table and say, I want to borrow 100% of the project cost, they may not laugh while you're there, but they will definitely laugh after you leave. Banks and investors want to see that you have some skin in the game, that you're taking some risk, because they don't want to shoulder 100% of the risk for your business venture. Personal funding can be brought to the bank in a number of ways. Bootstrapping is on here. I mentioned like using something used, maybe partnering with a like business. Maybe you're a florist and you partner with a wedding photographer to lease one space because you have like businesses. Maybe you utilize the equity in your home. When you are looking at a business, that's a perfectly acceptable way to find some funding, and it could be at a much cheaper rate. A business loan right now is going, even at a traditional bank, anywhere from 5 to 8%, and those prices go up. So a home equity loan, you could be with today's rates in around 2 or 3%. So that's one thing to look at. Again, credit cards, and maybe you can borrow against your retirement account, but utilize the resources that you have. Now, having said all of this, we're going to talk about business planning in a minute, but before you risk your retirement account or potentially your home, making sure you have a good business plan is going to be key, because those really aren't things you want to gamble with. Okay, so how much money do I need? What type of funding do I need? And then a strategy for how am I going to get it? Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to say? Another thing you don't want to say to a banker when they ask you how much funding do you need for your business, or an investor, is, I don't know, how much funding can I have? Almost all types of funders want to see that you know what it's going to cost to operate your business and what you're going to need to get it open. So having an estimated project cost is going to be really important. Those things include, maybe if you're looking at a franchise, there is a cost to that franchise. Your beginning inventory, more importantly, an attorney, a CPA, and a bookkeeper. Unless you are an attorney, a CPA, or a bookkeeper, you need an attorney, a CPA, or a bookkeeper. No one expects a accountant to do drywalling after work, and so no one thinks a drywaller should be doing accounting after work. This is another key reason why a lot of times small businesses fail by trying to do those things on their own. Also consider, what types of certifications do you need? What types of titles? What types of licensing you need for your county and city? Insurance for your business. You're going to be. Do you need bonded for your type of business? And then, of course, if you're borrowing money, what are the closing costs going to be on that? So in lending, debt financing specifically, banks are risk adverse. In an economic climate like we have today, banks are even more risk adverse. They're not sure of what's happening in the economy and what's coming up in the future. Plus, not many businesses had really pretty taxes in 2020. So they don't have a lot to base decisions on. So banks are very careful in their lending right now. They are looking at the 5 C's: character, capacity, capital, conditions, and collateral. In our market, a lot of times local community banks and credit unions may be a good option over a name brand national bank, because those decisions on lending are most of the time made locally. So it may be someone that you know or knows of you and your business that would be more likely to lend to you, even if everything doesn't look perfect on paper. So let's talk about those 5 C's. Character is looking at your credit history. It is amazing what can be learned from a credit report. From a credit report, I can tell how many times you've moved around, so I can tell how stable you are. I can see like clumping of collection debt that tells me maybe an incident happened, or maybe I see in that report different collection debt over years' time, and that indicates probably that you're someone that doesn't prioritize bill paying, which makes lenders very, very nervous. You can tell any criminal background, that all of those things are can be detected on a credit report. So if your lender is looking at more than your score, they're able to tell a lot about you from that. Another thing that you can see on a credit report, if you've had bad credit in the past and you've paid a company to dispute every item on your credit report to increase your credit score, lenders can see that as well and often view that as a negative because it looks like you have tried to get out of debt that you actually own. So I would advise anyone who is considering using a credit repair company to not do that. There are free resources such as the Start Here credit building program that can help you improve your credit without putting those negative connotations on your report. The next C is capacity. What is your ability to produce the goods and services and pay those loan payments when they come up? Because your first loan payment will typically be due about 45 days after you take a loan, and your business may not cash flow for as much as 6 months to 3 years. So do you have another source of income? Do you still have a W-2 job? Do you have enough money in savings to make those payments for that time period until you can get the business to cash flow. Also in capacity is, what do you know about this business? I mentioned at the start, everyone who's ate in a restaurant thinks they can own a restaurant. Have you owned a restaurant? Do you know how to order the food so you don't have a lot of waste? Do you know how to market to the population that you're serving to get them to come in your doors? Do you know how to cook? All of those things are reviewed. So if you have been a farmer your entire life and you say, oh, I'm going to open a plumbing business, that lender is going to want to see where you've had some type of training in that field before they're probably going to feel really comfortable with that loan. Then there's capital. How much money, and I'm gonna add on to this, money or time or personal resources have you invested in the company? Some lenders do consider your sweat equity as part of your capital injection. So that's something to be considered as well. But they do want to see, again, that you have some skin in the game. And conditions, this is what I talked about earlier. This is a rough area right now, just because of our economic conditions. However, nature of the business, maybe we have a restaurant that we work with. They had to close their door for COVID, but they pivoted. They started preparing family style takeout meals, and their revenues actually grew over 2019. So what type of business do you have? We also worked with a company that was looking at being a distillery. During COVID, they pivoted and started making hand sanitizer. And that was a really smart move based on the conditions. And then collateral. This is assets pledged as a source of repayment. And I put on here value at time of liquidation. So you pay, we'll go back to the day spa, you pay $5,000 for a super nice massage table, but 8 months later, that piece of used equipment may only hold about 10% of its value at liquidation for a lender. So they're going to be looking at how much they can get for that item if they would need to liquidate, not what you paid for it. So some common misconceptions of dealing with lenders. A lot of people believe that their personal credit doesn't have any impact on business lending, that somehow by starting a small business, you get a magic do-over in the world of credit. This is definitely not the case. Most banks will not even look at your business credit until they've already approved and your credit score personal has met their guidelines. The reason for this is because the same person that didn't pay that electric bill that's on your credit, on your personal credit, is the same person responsible for paying the electric bill for this new business entity. So banks want to make sure that the person paying the bills actually pays the bills. Business credit is important as your business grows, but as a startup, your personal credit is going to be a super important factor. This is going to affect the rates and terms, that you get based on that credit score. Another common misconception is that the SBA, they talk about an SBA guarantee. That guarantee is not for the business, it is for the bank. So if you are a riskier loan, maybe you haven't checked all their boxes on these 5 C's, but right now SBA is offering almost a 90% guarantee in almost all their loan products. So this leaves the bank with only a 10% risk, which makes them more likely to want to work with you. There's also a misconception that SBA loans take longer than a traditional loan to process. I would tell you that this is not the case. If you are working with we're going to talk about a preferred lender in a little bit here, but those preferred lenders can process an SBA loan in a very quick amount of time, sometimes quicker than a traditional loan. It just depends on the level of your loan. And obviously, the more money you borrow, probably the more time it will take, because they have to be, they have to secure everything to make sure that it's a good loan. So a typical bank loan, the owner must have, as I mentioned, some experience. They're looking at least 2 years experience in the industry. And they must be contributing between 20 and 25% of the total project cost. They'd like a credit score of at least 650. And I would say that in most banks right now, that's closer to a 680. And they do want a fully collateralized loan. That means that they want $1 worth of collateral for every dollar they lend you. They also are typically looking at a 2-year historical cash flow. You may be saying to yourself, I'm a startup business. How do I get 2 years of cash flow? And the reality is that you don't. Startup businesses really struggle to receive funding from traditional banks just because of this requirement. And this requirement is not something the banks do to be mean. This is through a federal regulation. And so through FDIC and the Federal Reserve Bank, banks have to be in compliance with those regulatory issues. Now, an SBA guaranteed loan program, there are several different kinds of SBA loans. There's a 7A, a 504, a community advantage loan, and then a microloan. So those vary. They can go anywhere from a $500 loan up to a $5 million loan. But $5 million is the maximum that you can get through an SBA guaranteed financing. So how the SBA guaranteed loan products work, and that's a 7A and a 504, is that they help you start your business or purchase the business and expand. They also help with exporting. And then what we've seen in the last couple of years really brought to the spotlight was their focus on recovering from a disaster. SBA will help a bank make a loan that they traditionally wouldn't, again, because of that 90% guarantee. The microlending product for SBA, and also for, like, we have a Start Here revolving loan fund, and that's a microloan as well. Those loans are typically from $500 to $50,000. There is no down payment required on those microloans. There's no penalty for early payoff. And the interest rates typically vary between 4% and 12%, and that is risk-based pricing. Typically, a microloan is for either someone who maybe you have a side hustle, you have a small business that's more of a hobby along with your W-2, and you just need a little bit of money. One of my favorite borrowers was a lady who had alpaca, and she had a loom, and she made yarn from her alpaca and sold the yarn on Etsy. We did a $2,000 loan to her to get a loom, and in 1 year's time, she had created $6,000 worth of income in selling that yarn on Etsy. So even though $6,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, based on the average household income in our 15-county area, $6,000 would be a tremendous shot in the arm to help out a family's budget. As part of the microlending, there's a lot of technical assistance offered. So that may be the credit building. For example, through our credit building program, we can typically move a credit score about 100 points within 6 months to a year's time. So we can get you ready for that. we might help you with getting your business started with a loan below 50,000. And then within a couple years time, when you have that record of 2 years cash flow, you're able to go to a bank and you have a pretty credit score, you have a great business history, and you're just ready to move forward. And then, again, helping your business maybe look at where do you need to be located? What products do you need to be selling? How do you market your product? Those types of things as well. For SBA products, you can use them for about any of these things. You can buy into a franchise. You can refinance existing business debt. You can buy equipment, machinery, and get some working capital, and then startup costs or expansion. Things that are not eligible for SBA. They won't let you open a casino or any type of gambling operation with their money. You can't do any real estate investment, so no speculative activities. You can't start a loan fund, can't start a church, you can't start a non-for-profit or charitable organization, no illegal activities, and no businesses that provide any material that has a sexual content. A question that I'm often asked on this is, can I fund my cannabis crop with an SBA loan because it is legal in my state? The answer is no. Until something is federally legal, then the SBA still considers it an illegal activity. So if something is federally okay, then it would be approved for SBA financing. But if it's only state approved, then that is not enough to make SBA happen. Earlier, I mentioned using a lender that knows what they're doing. In our market, there are several what we call PLPs. Those are preferred lenders. And to become a preferred lender, there's quite a process. They've had to have done so many loans. They've had to have a certain level of performance on those loans. So they've proved themselves. So the PLP lenders are actually able to do some of the approval of an SBA loan in-house. They don't have to send it to one of the guarantee centers to get the okay to write that loan. They're able to do those on their own. And if you're interested in finding a PLP near you, on the SBA.gov website, they have a tool called Lender Match. You put in your information, it will tell you what PLPs are near you. Also, there are USDA loans, and they also have loan guarantees. USDA differs from SBA in that if you go to a bank and they offer you an SBA product, that banker is going to be putting all that paperwork together. If they offer you a USDA loan, then they're going to contact USDA. And for our market, we have a couple. We have Melody Roach and also Makisha Moreno in the Springfield office. Both of those ladies are processors in a sense of the paperwork. So you would start working directly with USDA, but your bank would actually hold the note. The differences are the USDA requires a 1-to-1 match on collateral. So every dollar that you are lent, you have $1 to match it with. SBA does not have that requirement. USDA will allow a partner buyout. If I own the business with my sister and I want to buy her out and add a new partner, SBA will say, no, you can't do that. The USDA would probably say, yes, I could. So there are some subtle differences in the two programs that an experienced lender will be able to help walk you through. Again, just some of the benefits of a government guaranteed loan, especially this year in challenging economic times, is that it's less risky because of the guarantee. You don't need as much of a down payment. or as much collateral on hand. The interest rates are still very good. And a lot of times, like with the 504 product, you can go out longer terms on those. You will never have a balloon payment or a demand clause on a government-backed loan. I added this information in this morning. This is brand new. The COVID EIDL program is another way we mentioned recovery and disaster through the SBA. There's funding for a limited time for businesses, and those can be in the micro size up to 25,000 that don't require any collateral or personal guarantee, and you can apply online. Or there is a larger loan through EIDL that can go up to $500,000. There is some collateral required if it's over 25,000, and a personal guarantee is required over 200,000. And then you would need to make that application. They call you and walk you through that application if you are over that 25,000 threshold. The terms look like this. Again, they will lend to nonprofits through the disaster program, which a typical SBA will not. But the interest rate is 3.75, which you heard me mention rates earlier, from 5 to 8%. So that's a very nice rate. It is a 30-year note, and there's a deferment for up to 24 months. So you don't have to make any payments on that loan for the first 2 years. Which is again very nice during this time of a lot of things going on. You can use that for normal operating expenses, payroll, rent, cost of goods sold, commercial debt, and working capital. What you don't see on that list is purchase of real estate, purchase of equipment. So you can't use an EIDL loan to add on to your current business or change out your business model. What you can do is use it for these things. Working capital, I will say, is a very lenient term, and it does cover a lot of things. Here's kind of an idea what the repayment would look like on that. You know, on a $10,000 COVID EIDL loan, your monthly payment would be $46 a month, and you would not start that until year 3 of your business, of your loan. They have gotten more flexible on the EIDL. Some things they have added in that you cannot do in the past. You can now pay off your credit cards. So before you can make credit card payments that were part of your operation, but now if you've incurred debt over COVID and the last couple of years, you can make full payoffs on those with this EIDL loan. You can increase wages of your staff in order to keep employees on. You can pay if you have rent that is accumulated. You can pay back rent with that, and then you can pay for increased cost of goods sold. For example, in the construction world right now, the cost of lumber has really gone up a lot. So that's a big benefit to those folks. Here's some eligibility criteria. You need a credit score of 570. Again, we mentioned 650 to 680 on a regular loan before. So that's a really nice benefit here. You have to have evidence of being in business or having launched your business by January of 2020. Again, can't do a new business. And then you have to have less than 500 employees. The deadline is December 31st, but I will say that when the money runs out on this program, it's gone. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in applying, to do that quickly. And then they will want to look at your income taxes, and they will ask you to do an IRS form 4506T, which is a request for your tax transcripts from the IRS. So we've talked a lot about banks. Let's talk just a little bit about angel investors and venture capitalists. I did mention that they're typically looking to invest in high growth potential ventures. So they're not generally looking for folks at the startup stage. They want to make sure that they're making money when they get those. They fund, typically a venture capitalist will fund fewer deals than an angel investor group. The angel investor groups are typically made up of business owners or people that specialize in different industries. So again, it's a good resource for you as a business owner. You've got an additional expert on your team. And then the angel investors are investing their personal capital on these startups. And so both are typically looking for a share or a portion of your business in exchange for their dollars. Whether you're approaching an angel investor, a venture capitalist, a bank, a microlender, there are some things you're going to need. And one of those is a balance sheet, and then an income statement and profits loss statement and a cash flow statement. So if these are foreign terms to you, as I mentioned earlier, please connect with either the Women's Business Center, your local SBDC, or a bookkeeper accountant that specializes in business accounts. Because, for example, through the Women's Business Center, we will have a product called Live Plan. And that is something that you do with your business counselor and on your own on the computer, but actually giving you as numbers as close to reality as I feel like are there to maintain. And that's going to really help you plan for your business, because you will know exactly how much money that you're going to have coming in, going out. And if you're not meeting those expectations, looking at that quarterly, how do we pivot to do what we want to do? So I talked a little bit about this, but there's a saying, 1 in 3 small businesses fail. And that number is probably even higher right now because of the pandemic. But why do they fail? Well, the biggest reason is that they're just not doing that front end planning. They feel that they have this great idea and they don't have time to do a business plan because we've got to get this business open before someone starts it. And many of you may have heard the old adage, planning to fail, failing to plan is planning to fail. And that's no truer than it is in business. So either have a business plan prepared for you, work with a business counselor to prepare one on your own, maybe have a feasibility study done, but make sure that you have those projections and those financial documents. Let's see. Also, businesses fail because of being what we call capital starved. That means that you don't have enough capital to start with. A lot of entrepreneurs are like, I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need anybody's help. I can do this. And they invest all the money they have, all their savings, all their retirement. They've got their home in there, everything. And guess what? Their money's still short. So now they're in this crisis because they have this huge outlay of cash, but the business is still not profitable and they're not making enough to pay the bills. So again, working with a business counselor to determine how much money you're actually going to need, and then how to access that money. Surround yourself with a good team. I've mentioned a couple of times, the accountant, the bookkeeper. If you don't know HR, then again, consult with us at the Women's Business Center. We can help you. But also, have the people in place who's going to take care of your computers. As a business owner, a lot of times we have envisioned that we are the president of the company. We sit behind a big desk with a cigar with our feet up. But being a small business owner, you're also the janitor. You're also the HR person. You are all hats for that company. So surround yourself with people that know about business, because it's not something we're all innately born with. The wrong location. We have seen this over and over again. People that have a great business idea, they just put it in the wrong place. Oh, I'm gonna do this service out of the basement of my home. That may be fine if you're a service related business and you go to someone else's house. I'm coming over to fix your air conditioning. So I can run that from the basement of my house. A clothing boutique, and I live out in the middle of the woods. It's going to be really challenging to get people to come out to my house and feel comfortable in that situation. So choosing your location carefully. A great resource we have in our market is Kane Singer Basin Regional Planning Commission, and they work very hard with county and local governments. So they know of locations that are up for sale or lease, and they also are very smart in business. So they can tell you, hey, is this a good spot? And so again, utilizing those free services that can really help you out. So some things to take away, just plan for your future growth. Again, having a great idea is wonderful, but there's some work to be done after the great idea. You can get small business capital from a variety of different forms, but knowing what strings are attached to that capital is important as well. Understanding how much you need, and then considering if your business is a good fit for government-backed products, and especially taking advantage of any of the disaster relief that's available right now. And that's my presentation today. We're New Growth CDC, we're super happy that we have some resources to offer to you. Give us a call today. We can connect with you through the Women's Business Center, our revolving loan fund product, or our credit building, and we're happy to work with you. Thanks so much. Lindsay.